Antone Aguon from the Department of Corrections. Good morning, Major.
Good morning, Chris.
How are you?
Hello?
Yeah,
Are you there?
Yeah, we're.
Tell us about this. Tell us about this executive order that the governor signed yesterday.
And this is opening is it like a ward or over at the
Clinic or
prison
something.
clinic led by behavioral health and wellness?
Well, I don't know why I got feedback, but Chris, we're gonna be doing the same thing that we did basically with GMH, where GMH came in and took over our started taking charge of our medical. So we're going to be doing the same thing with the Guam Behavioral. Is they will come in, they will have a satellite, basically set up a satellite office here. One of our housing units will be used primarily to house inmates or detainees with behavioral health issues. And basically it's a partnership. And the whole goal is to just be able to better serve the population, that type of population, with whatever needs they have.
Mm-hmm. Was
So
this
it's similar to what we do with GMH right now.
right? But what was done with GMH? I thought that was because of the consent decree or the stipulated order. Is this also part of it?
Yes, back in the stipulation order, it also included mental health, really.
Okay,
And
so we're doing this because it's not like, oh, this is a great idea. It's because we have to.
yeah, and again, it will help increase the services to that population. Again, when we did this with GMH, it has worked well for us. And so then again with Guam Behavioral coming here, it also benefit DOC because we would not have to transport the prisoners up to the facility as often as we do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so with their staff being on the facility, they'll be with us here. Plus, in addition, the director will have access, the warden will have access to their employees and the management team, and we can quickly address inmate issues.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a number of inmates? You have an idea, inmates, detainees that have been in need of this service, and only now this is being addressed?
No, I mean, it's always been addressed. Sabrina, we currently have a Dr. Tamanglo that's on board.
Right, that's right.
Staff here. However, she's looking at retiring before the end of the fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's looking at moving out. And so, a good portion of our population, they suffer various issues. Some of them, they're just behavioral issues. Others require medication to manage. And so we've always been providing it, but now we're looking at a way to step it up and maybe improve the services that we are providing.
So what's the difference between what you've always been providing and what you're now going to be providing?
Well, oftentimes, Chris, we have inmates or those with behavioral issues or, that are a little bit more violent than others,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so sometimes what has to happen on our side is they get admitted to Guam Behavioral, but because of their behavior, we have to send officers up there to monitor them.
Right.
So because their staff up there, they don't have a facility up there sometimes to hold, to hold the people that, require special, cell arrangements. For example, again, they're violent, they want to break things, they need to be in a more controlled environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we oftentimes find ourselves sending officers to be stationed up there just to provide assistance.
Right. And hasn't there been instances in which some of these inmates or detainees have actually escaped custody while at mental health?
Yes. And so what happens with those are the judge will order them to go to Guam Behavioral, and what it is a transfer of custody.
Right.
So the document would say DOC is to relinquish custody of this individual to Guam Behavioral. So we do that. And they get in Guam Behavioral's care, and again, we leave. We're required at that point to be there, so we just drop them off and we leave. And there's been a few that decided to either walk away or just leave the facility on their own, and they just leave. So by putting them in an environment like here, their ability to just leave whenever they feel like it'll be a lot less, and they can comply more with the court order to get their treatment. Because what happens is they get caught, they leave there, they go out there, they commit another crime, and then end up right back in our facility.
Right.
Yeah, on new charges now.
It sounds like it's going to be a very a key and much needed component there at the prison, Major.
Yeah, and it's nothing new, Chris. Most prisons in the mainland, most facilities, this is how they've had to deal with this type of population. It's nothing that's new, because most prisons are experiencing the same thing of what we're experiencing in regards to behavioral health and people with mental health issues that require medication. And so this is nothing new. It's just it's new for us here, but it's not a new concept in terms of how to handle these types of populations. So we're going to work with all the details have not been worked out yet. That's where management between both agencies will need to sit down and work on the MOU and spell out who exactly will be responsible for what, and work out the budget details. And, and so it's not going to happen overnight.
Right. Who's going to have to pay for this? I mean, is it going to come from DOC's budget, or is it going to come from the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center's budget?
And then also, Major, if you could tell us how long is it going to take to do all that? Because, got MOAs, MOUs, it's like they go up to the AG's office and die.
Well, I mean, it's already being worked on now. I mean, we do have a Dr. Timing Note here. We'll continue doing our current process. We do have, like I said, our behavioral staff here. And as far as who pays for what, that will be spelled out in the MOU. My understanding, just reading the order, of course, staff from Guam Behavior will be assigned here. We're going to, of course, have our officers. We identified a unit where they will be housed at. And so that's our part right now. Everything else will be worked out, I guess, when they start meeting to work out the finer details.
Are we thinking like months here, or?
No, I don't think it'll take that long. I mean, our Dr. Timing is leaving by the end of the fiscal year, so we would want to make sure we have something in place before she even leaves, so there could be a better transition of responsibilities. Right.
Major, can you give us an update on the status of the incoming? This is where the families of inmates and detainees bring in approved supplies, right, and give them to the prisoners there. So what's the status on that?
So we're still going to be doing that at the end of the month, probably around the 28th or so of June, into the first week of July. That's, it went well, the last one we did, so we will continue to do that again. Again, at the end of the month, they're working out the schedule right now. I mean, we're still not lifting visitation yet, so there's still going to be no visitation at this time. Right. We do have attorneys that are coming in and starting to see their clients. We've had a few do phone teleconference with their clients, and we're still working to provide all the services as best we can to everyone that needs it.
Major, I forgot to call you. I think it was early at the beginning of the week. I got a call from I wasn't sure if he was an inmate or a detainee, but had told us that there was an incident involving the serving of dinner. Yeah. I'm not sure which house it was in, but apparently inmates were, from what I could gather, what they told me, they were served macaroni salad that was rotten. The food, they said that it smelled spoiled. And so they complained about it. The meals were taken back. And then from what this guy had told me, they weren't given dinner that night. Can you just so that's what I got from them. You just tell me what we got from you.
Okay. Yeah, Chris. So first of all, the meal services that we provide to the inmates, we have a contract with the outside vendor that provides the 3 meals a day for the inmates. Now on this particular day, it was the inmates at post 17. So the meals were served, and again, all the inmates in the department received the same meal, all 600 and some, except for those that have religious issues or religious or dietary needs. Then their meal may be a little different. Right. But all the remaining are served the same meal. So on this particular day, when the meals were served, they're served in a ready-to-go styrofoam container that each individually packed. So when they passed out the meals, some of the inmates, I guess the aroma of the food, maybe the mixture of the food, I'm not sure what, it didn't smell, Right. So they didn't want to eat it. So they passed it out. They came to the officer. They complained. The officer collected the meals, and the supervisor came on board, reviewed, looked at it, and even ate some of the meals to try it. We checked with the other units to see if they were having that issue, and it turns out the meals were not spoiled at all, because some, in fact, were already eating the meal when someone said, "Hey, I think it's bad," and then they joined the group and turned it all in. So when they turned it in, some of them didn't mark which meal was theirs. So when they turned it in, they weren't sure which was theirs. But once it was cleared to return and give it back to them that it was not bad, some of them still didn't want to eat it.
Because they weren't sure if the meal they got was the meal they got initially, and they didn't want to be eating someone else's spit germs.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
And so, again, we do have an arrangement with the vendor, sir, that if the food is for some reason not consumable, you can't eat it, the vendor would of course replace the meals free of charge, right? In this particular case, but again, we have to show to the vendor that the meals, there is a legitimate reason why they need to be replaced. In this case, the meals were not bad. There was a few of the inmates that I guess decided not to eat it. They ate, some of them ate half of it and didn't want to eat the rest.
What was the meal, Major?
It was that macaroni. It was a macaroni, a dinner roll. It was macaroni, tuna, with some mixed vegetables. It was a dinner roll, and on a side tray was pineapple and watermelon, for the fruit.
So just to be honest, it wasn't bad, as in spoiled. It was just bad, like they didn't want to eat it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, they just didn't want to eat it, and so they have the right to refuse it. And again, we have no problems replacing the meals. Even the vendor has no problems if they're the meals are not edible. But in this case, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And then in addition, the inmates didn't want to fill out. We have to make sure, Chris, that when we do these things, because we have a contract, so we have to make sure that when we do this, we have policies in place that say, okay, if you don't want to eat your meal, you need to sign this meal refusal form, so that we can properly document why we're replacing a meal. Because if we have to pay extra for these meals because it's at no fault to the vendor, then that's what we have to do. But some of these inmates decide, oh no, I don't want to sign that. I don't want to write a new refusal form, even though that's the policy. And so some of them may have went to bed that night with no dinner, but
it's their own fault.
Part of it was their choice. I mean, but again, we worked the situation. If that happens again, there'll be another way of trying to address that. But again, the food was not spoiled, and we cannot fault the vendor for that. So I want to make sure that we understand that it was at no fault of the vendor. It just, and I don't know why I wasn't there, so I don't know what it smelled like.
Would you eat it, Major?
I mean, we do have in the contract, sir, that meals are supposed to be provided, a copy to the courtesy plate for the warden and for the director. But I have not, I'm not around the meals, so I don't really.
That's part of the contract, where the warden and the director get a free meal.
Yeah, upon request, if the director or the warden need a meal, they can actually get one for free, just to sample it.
How often do they do that request?
Occasionally, the warden will get one, or the director will get one. Not every time; it's just once in a while.
What are the good meals from this vendor, Major?
Say again.
What are the good meals? Because it sounds just like the tuna macaroni.
Yeah.
It just sounds like they're just not having it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was only I think it was almost about, out of the 600 and some inmates, maybe 30 of them, maybe
30.
Give or take, almost 30 that complained.
Okay.
And again, most of them, half of them were only because they were okay, they wanted to eat it, but because they turned it in and didn't mark it properly, they didn't know which was theirs, so they were like, oh, I don't know which is mine here.
So do you feel they're kind of making a big deal out of this?
I mean, food's important in prison, Chris. Basically, that's the highlight of the day.
Right.
The 3 square meals that they get. So, I mean, it's not unreasonable for them to complain when the thing's not doesn't seem.
Right. But if it just tastes bad, then you don't.
No.
That's not.
Yeah. Well, we talked to the vendor about it, and the vendor, I think, also decided not to serve that particular type.
No
of
more
food.
macaroni salad.
Maybe not that way. I mean, maybe it was
Okay.
just the combination of the pineapple and the watermelon and the food all in the lid tray, because it's closed lid tray. So maybe when you first open it, the aroma of all those different foods, I don't know. But
Who's the vendor again, Major?
it's S&H. S&H?
Oh, S&H.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know who's that.
Well, they also go by California Mart.
I see.
Yeah. They've been our food vendor before in the past,
Right.
right? So occasionally we do have these problems, and that's why in our contract it does say that if there is an issue, they will, of course, replace the meals for free. You know, things when it's spoiled or managed
Yeah.
to determine.
What about a contraband update, Major?
Contraband? We've continued. We've had a few nuisance contraband. We've had some shakedowns in the last week. In fact, just last night again, we shut down another unit. Random shakedowns. That's part of our daily activities now. We're not finding a lot of contraband, but it's probably still there in some housing units, and it's a continuing everyday battle for us to manage the contraband.
Right.
Some of it's just nuisance contraband, different things like hoarding certain chemical cleaning supplies, or having the broomstick in your room when you shouldn't have it, and having too much of items in your room, and some of it's just basic general housekeeping. Other stuff we find, tobacco, of course, is the big one that we find.
Major, I remember it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe, you had talked about the director wanted to get everyone tested. Then we spoke to you last week.
Yeah.
You said there wasn't an update, right? Do we have any update on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a continuous talk about it. Again, I think a lot of it just has to do with capacity, because we have 600 some people in the prison, and so we did talk about it yesterday. The director still wishes to test everybody, but I think we're taking our guidance at this point from public health, and the main issue I think just comes all the way down to capacity, the ability to test, and working on other logistical issues if we do decide to test, like separating them from each other, from those that want to be tested to those that don't want to be tested. And so those are still things we would have to try to address. But as of now, we have not tested anyone. Because,
Has there been anybody that's exhibited any sort of symptoms?
Not of today. As of today, I've not heard anything.
Okay.
And so we're still basically holding strong with whatever safety precautions we have in place.
Okay.
Okay, Major, is there anything else you want to add in there?
No. Well, we will be doing shortly. We're going to be hiring an additional 15 officers soon.
Okay.
Interviews in a few weeks for that. We have some promotions that are coming up in about a week or two. We're just waiting for the ratings to come out of DOA already. So we're going to be hiring also 2 parole officers. We've brought on board some clerk typists to help us administratively.
Right.
You
And
mentioned.
so again, we're trying to right size our staffing.
Right.
So it's little by little we're trying to get there.
You mentioned last week about efforts to promote teleconferencing or video teleconferencing for the hearings.
Right.
Where are you guys with that?
So right now, the Agana precinct, we'll keep calling it Agana precinct. I got to come up with another name for that, but the former Agana precinct, it's still under renovation. We're working out the details on procuring the equipment, and we still have constant meetings with the courts in regards to setting this process up.
Anything from the AG's office on the master plan?
Well, I did talk to the attorney last week, and he is, again, he's bombarded with other things, but he is working on it, and he assures me he's going to get it done real soon, and probably by next week I'll try to set up a meeting with him to work out. I mean, he's reviewing it, and it just takes a long time, I guess, but we're constantly following up on that, and hopefully we'll hear something soon.
Okay.
All right, Major.
Yeah, so.
Hey,
All right. Thanks, Antone.
have a good weekend.
Okay, you too.
Happy
All right.
Father's Day.
You too, Chris. Happy Father's Day.
Okay, wash your hands, Major.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Major Antone Aguon. Hey, let's keep it with our law enforcement theme. We just went behind bars. Now let's get our handcuffs out. Sergeant Paul Tapau.